So I put a Facebook status up today asking for requests. I got a number of good ones in. Only got time to fill one sadly. Although I am doing the live show tomorrow night, so we can perhaps cover some of the other questions. But the one that I wanted to answer was one that came through in a message, which was, do you think Hughie Fury will become a world champion? And the reason I wanted to do that was because Hughie Fury is a guy we talk about a lot in videos, talk about a lot in the comments section, but whilst I've done videos on him in the past, I haven't necessarily done an up-to-date video on Hughie Fury. And I certainly think that people who are watching this video, who are maybe in America, Australia, New Zealand, Europe, need to be very, very aware of Hughie Fury. They really do. I think he's a top class prospect. Now, before I go into a complete breakdown of his style, let me just give you the bare facts around Hughie Fury. Currently, Hughie Fury is 21, but you wouldn't guess it to look at him. You know, the guy for me looks like he's 25, 26, 27. I've met him in person. He genuinely is a very, very, very big guy. I'm 6'4", and he towered over me. You know, I've seen on BoxRec that he is listed as 6'6", and I can certainly believe that. You know, he is shorter than Tyson. He doesn't have the same height as Tyson, but he's a very, very, very big guy. He's obviously Tyson Fury's first cousin. Yeah, so Hughie is an out-and-out technical boxer for my money. He is an extremely accomplished amateur who won the Amateur World Championships in the super heavyweight division. Obviously he's unbeaten as a pro. I think he's something like 16-0, 17-0, and he's made good work of all of his opponents to date. I think it's fair to say that, you know, in his 17 or however many fights it's been so far, it's very hard to pick any more than 1 or 2 rounds that he's lost. You can't point to any fight where he was hurt. He hasn't been dropped. He really has made very, very light work of the opposition he's been in with, which is understandable because, to be honest with you, his resume isn't the strongest out there. Of his fights, the only one that really stands out as a top 50 opponent is Andre Rudenko. Now that fight was very, very impressive because Hughie Fury defeated Rudenko with consummate ease. Basically beat him every single round of the fight. And this is the same Rudenko who took Lucas Brown to hell and back. And to be honest, almost upset Lucas Brown when you know, he went and fought Lucas in that fight. So that was a very, very impressive win. But what gets really exciting about Hughie Fury for me is his age. Because, as I say, Hughie Fury is 21 years old. Now, when you're 21 years old, and bear in mind that a lot of his fights that are on YouTube are when he's 20 or 19. When you're a guy who's 6'6" at 19, 20 years old, you really don't grow into your frame. You know, real tall, rangy guys, I think, mature later than lightweights or welterweights. You know, it takes a lot longer to develop and build into your frame. You know, Hughie Fury, whilst physically he has the appearance of a man, I still think he's got a lot of developing to do in terms of man strength. You know, we talk about Anthony Joshua being a young guy. We talk about Joseph Parker being a young guy. Hughie Fury is an absolute baby in terms of heavyweight boxing. You know, 21 years old, let's be honest, most guys, a lot of guys haven't even gone pro at that. And Hughie's, you know, something like 17-0 at this stage of his career and performing with real credit. In terms of, let's start with the negatives about Hughie Fury. Number one, he doesn't seem to be a huge power puncher. Now, I know if you listen to Peter Fury, his trainer, Peter will say he's a very, very big power puncher. He's just a bit too eager in the ring. You know, he's trying to knock guys out too much and it's stopping him from getting the knockouts. And I do agree that maybe Hughie is a bigger puncher than his record suggests. But having watched the vast majority of his fights, this guy is not an elite power puncher. He's not a David Haye. He's not a David Price. He's not a Deontay Wilder in terms of his power puncher. I mean, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't want him hitting me on the chin. He's clearly a hurtful power puncher. He's a big guy, but he's not a brutal KO artist. That's sort of negative number one. Negative number two is his style of fighting is one for the purists. And the reason I say that's a negative, and I am a purist, you know, so it doesn't bother me, but the reason it's a negative is it affects his marketability. You know, Hughie isn't a guy who I envisage scoring devastating knockouts. He isn't a guy I envisage getting in Gatti Ward style brawls in the centre of the ring. You know, he's a clinical, technical boxer. You know, and you can see that he's got that accomplished amateur pedigree. So that's the second thing to mention. The third thing to mention, his outside of the ring persona. Hughie is very different to his cousin Tyson. He's not as outgoing. I think it's fair to say, doesn't have the same charisma as Tyson. He's a quieter, more reserved guy. Now, all of those negatives, for me, tie into a lack of marketability. I think he will struggle to get as much attention as some of the other prospects out there. If you had 30 seconds to watch a highlight reel of Joseph Parker or Anthony Joshua or Hughie Fury, you would probably be left with the visual impression that he is the lesser of the three prospects. If you had a minute to watch pre-fight footage of him and Tyson Fury, you would probably be left with the impression that Hughie is the least entertaining fighter. And the reason I bring these negatives up before I bring the positives up is because whilst Hughie may not appeal to the casual fan in the same sense that Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua would, due to their style or due to their personality, whatever, if you're a hardcore boxing fan, if you enjoy watching pure boxers and technicians, this is a guy that you simply must check out. He is what I would class as an instinctive boxer. He does everything right instinctively. If you watch a guy like Deontay Wilder, if you watch a guy like Bryant Jennings, if you watch a guy like Seth Mitchell, these are guys who have come from other sports. These are guys who have made their way into boxing because of their backgrounds in basketball or American football, or you know, have just come to it late for whatever reason and don't have an amateur career. And sometimes, even though those guys have performed at a much, much higher level than than Hughie Fury, got Anthony Joshua on the mind after my 30-minute video last night. But what I'm getting at is, when you get these guys who have performed at a higher level, like Deontay Wilder clearly has fought at a much higher level than Hughie Fury, the mistakes Deontay Wilder is making are, for me, typical of a guy who hasn't grown up in a boxing gym. You know, I've talked extensively on the channel about Wilder backing up in a straight line, chin in the air, the way he raises his hands and, you know, doesn't keep his guard up. You know, Deontay Wilder's holes in his game, for me, probably wouldn't have been there if Deontay Wilder had been focused on the sport of boxing from the age of 5 or 6, rather than focusing on other pursuits. Now, with Hughie Fury, I really don't see the same flaws. Let's put it this way. If you watch Deontay Wilder and you watch Hughie Fury, there's more that's instantly right about Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder is a more athletic fighter. He carries more power. He's got more of a personality. But when you actually dig a bit deeper, what you've got to say is what is wrong with a Deontay Wilder. And when you ask that question of Hughie Fury, what is wrong of Hughie Fury, there's actually very, very little that you can say that is wrong with Hughie Fury. I talk extensively on this channel about guys like Charles Martin, Anthony Joshua, Dillian White, Joseph Parker. All of those guys, it's quite easy to actually pick out flaws with them and look at fights where they've made mistakes. Look at elements of their game that they need to improve. Now, Hughie Fury has actually performed at a lower level than the majority of those guys. So it may be that he hasn't been tested to the right extent yet, and it may be that more flaws will become clear as he steps up in class. But let me say, at this point, in terms of what is wrong with Hughie Fury, I see very little that I can point out in his game that is a flaw Hughie Fury needs to work on. He's 21, he's an absolute baby in the sport, and honestly, there's not much there that I think he needs to improve on. What he needs to do is slowly, gradually increase the level of opposition. There's no need to rush him whatsoever. No need to rush him whatsoever. He's 21 years old. There'd be nothing wrong if he was fighting for a world title at 26. Slowly educate him, slowly build up the level of opponents. But I'm not seeing any gaps in this guy's game. For me, the way he moves around the ring is very, very impressive. There is a calmness to Hughie Fury's work. That is something that I really like about him. There is a real sense of ring generalship, calmness, and just comfortableness when you watch Hughie Fury box. And that has probably come from the very, very high class training camps he's been in, where he's been able to work with guys like Tyson Fury, Eddie Chambers, Steve Cunningham, Kevin Johnson. There's all of these sort of names that have been over for work with the Fury camp, as we know. And he's probably very, very experienced in the gym, even more so than in the pro game. And because of that, he probably has the experience and calmness that represents much more of a veteran than a 21-year-old prospect. But if you watch him in the ring, he is very calm. He's a thinking fighter. He's not somebody who goes in and tries to bowl out opponents. He's not someone who panics. He's not someone who allows the opponent to dictate the pace and control what he's doing in there. Hughie Fury is a guy who can have a look, take stock, and fight at his own pace. And fighting at your own pace is so key in this division, because what you'll find is that for a vast majority of fighters, stamina problems are there and tactical problems are there. With Hughie Fury, I'm thinking that those problems won't be out there. He's already gone the distance several times against various different styles of fighter. He's fought the Andre Rudenkos, the George Ariases, those kind of guys. Clearly, the level of opposition needs to be stepped up, but Hughie Fury really impresses me. The jab is a real asset, and clearly it should be. If he's 6'6" tall, 9 times out of 10 he's going to be the biggest guy in the ring on any given night. And for a guy like him, who isn't a clinical one-punch knockout power or a knockout artist, to have that jab working consistently, working accurately, is a key addition to his game. He's also very much an underrated body puncher. And one of the things I like about Hughie, and I say this about, it's really recognisable when heavyweights do that, is that they can work in body punches to combinations. So often you'll see Hughie Fury jab, cross, and then hook to the body. And it's often the hook to the body that surprises opponents, because, Hughie gets them to put their hands up and keeps their guards very, very tight with the initial jab and punch that goes to the head area, and they leave themselves open, leave themselves exposed to the body. So yeah, I really, really rate Hughie Fury. At this point, I am viewing him as a really well-rounded operator. I don't see technical deficiencies in his game. I don't see, most importantly, I view him as an instinctive fighter. Often when people are not instinctive fighters, you kind of get a concern that when they step up in class and when they are hit back, or when a barrage of punches is coming their way, you kind of get a sense that they freeze a bit. You're kind of not sure that they know what to do in those circumstances. That is especially applicable for me when guys have come from other sporting backgrounds or have maybe come to boxing late. But with Hughie Fury, I don't get that sense. We're talking about a guy here who can bend, lean, try and get low, try and roll. You know, we're talking about a guy who is loose, and he's not a sort of stiff guy who you think will get put into a corner and won't know what to do. He can be slippery. He's got an excellent movement around the ring. You know, his feet are as educated as his hands in terms of a boxing sense. And I think he's got a long way, a long way to go till he gets to the top. But I sincerely believe he can get to the top. And funnily enough, with the experience in his camp, if I had to choose one heavyweight prospect who I would be confident will eventually become a world champion, at this stage I probably would pick Hughie Fury. He's obviously earlier on in his career than the rest of the guys, but I hold a genuine belief that 9 times out of 10, the grade A boxer will rise to the top, and the guy who relies more on athleticism, the guy who relies more on punching power, may struggle when they come up against the grade A boxer, because when someone's able to take away your assets, what else do these guys have to rely on? Whereas the grade A boxer can change tactics, can move from the outside to the inside, can move from the jab to the other punches that are in their locker. So yeah, I think Hughie will get there. I really do. I think he's got a huge upside. And I think he's one that us hardcore fans should really get behind and support. I understand there's going to be a big fight announced for Hughie Fury soon. I'll certainly be sure to cover that on the channel when it is announced. Peter Fury put a status on Twitter that says something like Hughie Fury and a new, so I presume it's for some sort of title. I don't know if that would be the English title or potentially like one of the governing bodies, international or intercontinental titles. But my advice would be, and not that the Fury camp need my advice because they've done a good enough job with Tyson Fury, but my advice would be not to worry about titles. I know Hughie Fury's probably looking at the success Tyson's having and probably wanting some of that for himself. I imagine Hughie Fury hasn't had much of a payday whatsoever in his career so far, and clearly wants to start earning some money for himself and building his career in that sense. But for me, he's such a young guy and the basics are so there that there really is no need to rush Hughie Fury. No need at all. And for me, if it took him 3, 4, 5 years to fight for a world title, that wouldn't be a bad thing at all. That wouldn't be a bad thing at all. Right now, people in the UK, they're talking Anthony Joshua versus Hughie Fury. They're talking Dillian Whyte versus Hughie Fury. David Price versus Hughie Fury. Derek Chisora versus Hughie Fury. I'd kind of be inclined to stay away from those matchups for now. I would think that it may be sensible for Hughie Fury to go his own route, not to worry about what the other British fighters are doing, at least for another year. Maybe Derek Chisora, David Price, in 2017, maybe those are matchups to look at. But right now, with him still so young and still probably growing into his body as such a big guy, then I think he should maybe go his own way. We'll have to see who Peter Fury announces for his next fight. Peter has suggested in the past it'll be a top 10 opponent. It could potentially be a top 10 opponent rated in one of the governing bodies. I guess there's probably a lot of dubious top 10 opponents. I personally wouldn't want to see Hughie Fury in with a legitimate top 10 opponent at this stage, because I think the step up in class from his last couple of fights would be too much. So I'd look to slowly build Hughie Fury. You know, there's a lot of heavyweights out there who you could match him up against, and maybe I'd like to see him in 12 months' time fighting the likes of Marius Wok, Christian Hamer, Fraser Quendo. You know, that sort of level of guys who are going to be durable, guys who are going to give him rounds, guys who are going to show him lots of different looks in the ring, and you know, so he can start to build up his experience. Might be good for him. Obviously, he'll have got a huge amount of experience sparring Tyson Fury, but clearly Hughie Fury is a guy who is going to get by in a lot of his fights based on his size and based on his height. You know, the real giants of the heavyweight division, Wilder, maybe Vladimir Klitschko, these guys are going to be bigger than Hughie Fury probably by an inch or two. So it may be good for him to fight the likes of a Marius Wok or a Ustinov. So he can get experience of how he needs to adjust in a fight against a guy who's taller than him when his size is not going to be a contributing factor to why he gets the win. You know, so I'd look for those kind of fights. Maybe looking into late 2017, I'd be looking more at the Chisoras, the Pianettas, maybe the Dillian Whites at that sort of stage, and then 2018 probably. Then you'd be looking at the legitimate top 10 contenders. I know people think I'm too conservative, but the guy's 21 years old. He's yet to fight a top 30, 40 opponent. And I just think he should continue his education the way he's doing. But in terms of answering the question that was posed, will Hughie Fury get to a world title? For me, the answer is yes. The guy is hugely well-rounded. You know, he may not be instantly entertaining, he may not be the most explosive, the most athletic, the most powerful, but what I want to know is, what are the weaknesses in Hughie Fury's game? Where is it that Hughie Fury's going to be exposed? And do you know what? I just don't see those obvious weaknesses. For me, he is a real solid technician and a real well-rounded guy with a lot to offer to the sport. Let me know your thoughts. If you've enjoyed this video, hit the thumbs up. Of course, we expect the opponent for Hughie Fury to be announced soon. I will do a follow-up video to discuss that matchup and how I see it. Potentially it will be against quite a recognisable household name as well. So if you're interested in my thoughts on that fight when it's announced, please hit the subscribe button. I wouldn't want you to miss out. Thanks a lot for watching.